Bob started Green Pasture Services, a pasture consulting service, after retiring from NRCS, where he was the state grassland conservationist and the state grazing lands conservation initiative coordinator in Ohio. Bob lives and farms in Pickaway County, Ohio, near Circleville, where he has a pasture-based sheep operation and grazes stock or cattle. Bob has received numerous national, regional, and state awards for the work that he has done. And he's been a member and an officer of numerous organizations related to grasslands and sheep and other things. Currently, he serves on the National Grazing Lands Coalition Committee representing the American Forage and Grassland Council. So at this time, please help me in welcoming Mr. Bob Hendershot.
Well, thank you. It's good to be here. I was out at the registration desk and I told him, this is the seventh one. I've been at all seven of these. I always haven't spoken. I have spoken at every one of them, but usually in the breakout session. But, this time I get to talk to you again. I want to talk about the future of grazing and why are you grazing. This is my little pasture service. She goes out there with the wand and gets the cows from her. I can't see the wand she has, but she's got her wings on. But she enjoyed. That's the reason I graze. Now, when we were younger, this were kids. I graze for a purpose. I'm here to tell you that I think there's a bright future for grazing and forage production in the United States, and especially here in the eastern part of the United States. I'm going to tie in real well with my good friend Jim Garish. We share a lot of the same ideas. And like him, I've been doing this for my fifth decade. I think I started 3 years sooner. It's the fourth largest crop in terms of number of acres that we grow. A lot of acres for the $20 billion a year. That's just forage. 10% of the western U.S. alfalfa crop is exported now. It's grown. From my part of the world, I'm in southern and eastern Ohio. Some of my friends here may know where Mount Hope, Ohio is. They have a big hay auction now. It's now the largest sheep auction east of the Mississippi. But give you an idea what the value of the crop is. Second cutting alfalfa is selling between $335 to $385 a ton. That mixed hay would be that grass with hay. That's $230 to $350. And just big ground bales. Grass hay, $100 to $240. So the point here, I want you to think about it. Go back to what Jim told us this morning. During that 35 to 40 inch rainfall, what would be our potential yield? I look at this ranking like that. It's 7 to 9 tons. 7 to 9 tons per acre. I conservatively only said 6 tons. If I took 6 tons of that alfalfa at 350, that's $2,100 an acre. Gross return. How much corn? Do you think you have any corn producers in Ohio that will gross $2,100 an acre? Even at 300 bushel, that's $7 corn. Either one of those probably isn't going to happen. That mixed hay that we all could grow at $300 a ton, that's $1,800 a ton. 300 bushel corn, if I got $3 worth. There's potential there. There's potential to grow forages. The big thing is, are we doing it or not?
Give me just 1 second. Where are you?
cheaper to ship
I
hay
know,
to
right?
China than it is to the Western dairies in Idaho. Think about that. It's cheaper to ship hay halfway around the world than it is over the mountains. Here in the yes. Well, China's paying the freight because they have an empty ship going back. So they'd rather fill it with hay. The other part is they have a huge demand for forage. Their dairies have increased tremendously. There's people there now right now. There's little Chinese kids that want to drink chocolate milk. They want that milk, but they don't have enough forage to feed the cows. They thought it's cheaper to buy our hay and feed it and milk their own cows. 2007, they were only buying 2,400 tons of hay. 2013, 6 years, there went to 785,000 tons of hay. Same thing happened in the United Arab Emirates, 37 tons. They too, this hay is all going to mostly dairy cows. Over 743,000 tons of hay. And those aren't our biggest hay buyers. Japan and Korea, South Korea are our two largest ones. China is number 3. They're not our best, our biggest ones. Saudi Arabia will be doing the same thing starting next year. They no longer will be irrigating their alfalfa. That means they're going to be in the alfalfa hay market, in the hay market, buying hay. Instead of us buying all from them, we're going to be selling them hay. They're going to be buying our hay. Tremendous opportunity for us to be in the forage business. What we can do with that.
Did it go? Okay.
Because grazing is a very biological efficiency. Where are you selling?
You gotta be kidding me. You have got to be kidding me. Over there.
Is it on? Yeah. You're selling sunshine and rain. Huh? To Arabia, maybe. But most of us, our hay isn't going there. But we're selling our
I'm going to have to read it for him by the end of it.
which is basically
right.
sunshine. You don't pay for it, do you? Unlike California, do you pay for your water? California, but we don't, do we? We're blessed. We have ample rainfall. We don't have to worry about that. And most summers we get enough sunshine. So we have the opportunity. You know, the cows eat it, sheep eat it, they actually fertilize it back. All we have to do is manage it. And do you know how to manage it? That's why you come to things like this, to learn how to do those things. Because most of us don't. The bad news, most U.S. grazers do not use all the knowledge that's available to them. Most of them aren't aware of all the new technology that's available to them. And we need to emphasize on growing more forage per acre. Remember, potential is 7 to 9 tons. Are you reaching that potential? Do you have Jim's book? Have you read it? I read this almost every winter. The other one is Ed Rabin, and Ed in here, he edited this series. This is 4 booklets together. It's the forage production based for pasture-based livestock production. Tremendous amount of information is available to us. It's already out there. We just have to go and get it. The good news is we have, just like Jim said, we have lots of potential. Tremendous amount of potential to grow more forage, to grow more beef. Australians are doing a lot already with some of those drones we saw yesterday afternoon flying over their farms, and we don't have to drive over them now. If you ever go to England, I encourage you to go to some of the farms and attend one of their British Grassland Society meetings. They meet out on farms.
and talk about growing grass and how to better, and they work together as a community. They share ideas. In New Zealand, if you ever go to New Zealand or have anybody from New Zealand come and talk to you in your neighborhood or in your counties, listen to them. They know their grass. You ever been to New Zealand? Their noon ag report, what do we get here on our noon ag report? And Chicago Board of Trade. Their noon ag report is kilograms per hectare of grass growth. I'll tell you how many kilograms it should have grown, and what it grew yesterday, what's projected for tomorrow. And the guys are out there and they know how much grass is growing every day. Do you know how much grass you grew last year? For the whole year. They know every single day what's going on in the farms. So the knowledge, technology, and sociology, we're going to spend a little time on and see if we can go quickly through this. It's all based on another book by Andre Boysen. Jim's book summarizes that and puts it in. Andre was a biologist and everything. There's a lot of tables and calculations in that book. But it's matching the plant's need for rest and growth with the animal's need to eat, to grow. And to balance both of those together. That's what we're doing when we're managing pastures. You're managing the plants and the animals at the same time. Our crop farmers and our feedlot confined livestock producers don't do that. You have a confined animal, you just feed them. You don't worry where that feedstock came from. Or if I'm growing a crop, I just worry about that crop. I don't worry about who's going to eat it. But when you're out grazing, you have to worry about both at the same time. It's the most complicated form of livestock or agricultural management systems. I want you to be proud of what you're doing. You're managing one of the most difficult systems that are available to us. High quality pasture is always better utilized by the young growing stock. Feeding high quality pasture to brood cows is probably an inefficient way. Okay. But her calf is the valuable part of it. She's the one you're making money with there. The amount of pounds per day that calf puts on. So that's what we want to think about, where this forage is going to, or that stock of calves, or that ewe that's nursing the triplets out there. Extending the grazing season is where we're at with mama cows. You want to reduce your feed costs. And like Jim said on Friday morning, winter feed is your most expensive part. So if you can reduce your stored feed costs, then we can become more productive. More dollars in your pocket. So you'll be in the business longer. So think about ways we can extend our grazing season. The factors that affect it, these are things all goes back to pasture intake. How much the animal eats. The more she eats, the more she grows. The more she grows, the more pounds you have to sell. But you got to get her to eat. Characteristics, you can control all of those. How much is out there? That's the pasture map. Allowance, how much area you give them to eat that. The residual you leave behind. That means how fast it's going to come back and grow. And how much total production you're going to get for the year. Digestibility of that material. Is it highly digestible or not? And then the fiber, NDF part of that. Over on the animal side, diet selection is broken down in non-nutritional and nutritional components. The non-nutritional is bite size. Bite size. Every animal is different. Okay? You can group them and get closer. But you can't change that. Once you have an animal, the size of her mouth is already predetermined. You're not going to make her mouth any bigger. Now I can select for animals that have bigger mouths. Because what happens when they have a bigger cow has a bigger mouth? She's going to take a bigger or smaller bite. Bigger bite. The more she eats, the more milk she's going to make, the more she's going to grow. Bites per minute. That cows don't eat till they're full. They eat by a number of bites per day, 24-hour period. They have a little clicker in their brain. Okay? Some Cornell, that's in here, graduate student they separated. Identical twins at birth, separated. And those two twins would always have the same number of bites as they grew up. So it's an inherited characteristic. A hard-keeping cow either has a small muzzle or takes fewer bites per day. Physically isn't eating as much. Or a combination of the two. On the other hand, we're looking for cows with wide muzzles, takes lots of bites. Digestibility. Some animals are more efficient at digesting the forage we're giving them. That's another genetic characteristic. I worked with a producer in western Ohio. Him and his father both had about 40 cows. They put their calves together. They had about 80 calves and weighed them all. They were going to prove to Hendershot that he was wrong. So they had a hay field, and they took those weaned calves and put them out on that hay field. Strip grazed it, moved it every day. Had the water running down alongside of it, and they grazed those calves. At the end, 52 days, they grazed that whole thing. They harvested 750 pounds of beef per acre in those 52 days. Okay. But each individual cow, some of those calves put on 7 pounds a day. But we also had some calves that lost weight, eating the same stuff. What was that? That was animal genetics. He called and told me, Bob, I don't understand. I said, you just selected what heifers to keep next year. You want to keep the ones from those matings of the ones that did really good. You really don't want to keep the ones that did poorly. But said, Bob, those were some of the best looking calves were the ones that didn't grow. I said, looks don't matter. You don't sell how good they look. You want to sell how many pounds. So think about selecting animals that are more efficient in terms of digestion. The things you have to manage in that pasture field, we've talked about the last 2 days, the water, the shade, the salt, the mineral. Where you place them in your pasture affects how efficient you're going to be. You never put the salt and mineral close to the water. That's a tool you can use to move those animals across the field. So we want to try and keep them moving through that system and not congregating in the same area. The distance, I think you may see some of these slides twice today. But notice the feedlot. If you're in a feedlot operator, you want the water less than 100 feet away. If you're on the left-hand side, left-hand side. But in a pasture field, that's too small an area. Some of you with smaller operations maybe could do that. But we usually think of that 800 foot. Notice after 800 feet, the line really drops off. So we want to try and stay close to the water with our grazing system, or get the water close to where the animals are. Keep our efficiency high.
Ian?
There, and the manure distribution. One of the things we worked on this summer in Ohio was looking at manure distribution, trying to figure out. And if we can get that water close, we can get a better distribution of manure. If you get better distribution of manure, you're fertilizing your pastures more uniform. When you fertilize it, you don't dump all the fertilizer in one pile, do you? You try to put it, where do the cows dump it? Typically where they sleep, under the shade tree. And if your shade trees are next to the creek, what happens to all your phosphorus? The first flood, it gets taken away. But if we can manage that, then we can manage that phosphorus distribution. The length of the grazing period and stock density. Jim did a great job talking about those, but they affect our utilization. The more, the better we can utilize it. He talked about this one. When he had a different chart, as they stay more days on the pasture, they eat less and less. He talked about moving them every day. We can keep their bellies full if we move them every day. It's not like eating leftovers day after day, the same pot. They eat less and less. In this case, we can get them to eat more often we move them. If we stay in the same pasture, we get that roller. By the end of the first week, they really don't eat. By then, it starts regrowing and they'll come back and eat some more of the same plant. where we hurt our plants. There. I hope you can see this one. But stock density and selectivity. As stock density goes up, selectivity goes down. And with good management intensive grazing, we like to stay in where those two lines intersect. Where we have moderate level stocking rate and a moderate level of selectivity. We want to decrease selectivity. That means they eat some of the weeds that you don't like. We have to increase the density. Get them to think that their neighbor won't eat. If we're designing a system, think of it this way. 20 cows, 1,500 pound cows with calves, that's 30,000 pounds of livestock. 20 times 1,500. They're going to eat 3% of their body weight, that's 900 pounds. If I'm moving them every day in the summertime, I'll be 70% efficient, so I need to offer them 1,285 pounds. And that other 30% is the ones they're going to step on, poop on, pee on, or as Jim said, they lay on. And when they mat it down, they don't lick it back up, do they? So we want to try, so that's why we have to offer them more than what they're going to eat. So if I had a pasture that had 2,700 pounds out there, I've measured it, that would be 9-inch tall, moderate level of tall fescue with clover, 9 times 300 pounds. 300 pounds is the pounds of dry matter per acre per inch. So my 9 inches times 300 gives me 2,700 pounds. Remember Jim's rule? Take half, leave half. So I'm going to graze half of that off and leave half of it. So I'm going to leave, Jim threw it up, 3.8 inches. About 4 inches, okay? I work in terms of dry matter pounds. I'm going to leave 1,350 pounds. I don't measure my pasture by the inch. I would measure it with the rising plate. I measure by the pounds of dry matter. And as I've worked the last few years on my own pasture, I'm leaving more and more. And like Jim said, when you leave more, you grow some more. Trying to stay in that sweet spot of the grazing growth curve. So for heavy stocking, for short periods of time, encourage diets mixing. They just don't go out there and eat the good stuff. They're going to eat some bad stuff along. Kind of where your mom taught you to eat. Don't just eat the ice cream. You got to have some steak, potatoes, some green vegetables. Like here, to give you salad every meal we've had here. My wife has been so proud of me. I eat a salad every meal. Okay. The diet selection. Animals select a higher quality diet than what you can clip in the field, or what you can bale in the field. When they go through there, they're sorting it out. Every bite, they're sorting it out. And they're always going to eat the best and leave the rest. And they're going to eat the best part of the plants. Selection is to live in, Jim talked about this morning, availability, and then, there we go, palatable. I'm too quick. Not often I talk faster. Differential access to the plant. That means, what's the most palatable part of the plant? Leaves. Leaves. More palatable than the stems. So as we look at this, they're going to eat the tops and the leaves. The leaves tend to be at the top. But think about this. Same way with clover. Those of us with sheep. How do the sheep eat? They're more polite. They never stick their tongue out to eat. I told you I was a shepherd. They'll pick the leaves off that clover plant, leave the stem. Your poor old cow has to eat the whole thing. Okay? But for a sheep, they can be much more selective. Habitat and experience. Who teaches your cows how to graze? Their mommy. It's that experience with mom, beef cows. Who teaches a dairy calf how to eat? Nobody. It's a big learning experience for them. How many dairy calves die from scours? There's no mama there to teach them. So we're trying to raise them on our own. But in the beef cow or sheep world, they watch mom eat. So mom's eating something, they say, how did she do that? And they kind of watch your baby calves. I love watching my lambs that first 2 months they're born. They're just inquisitive about everything and how it grows. But 75% availability, 25% quality. If you're not managing your grazing, your biggest boost will come from just managing the grass. Before you plant anything, plant some knowledge in your brain on how to manage the pasture. That availability is how much you offer them and how much when you take them out. Don't force them to eat it. Sure. It's called overgrazing. Remember? We heard that Friday morning. But it's driven by the time spent grazing, the biting rate, and biting size. The time spent grazing, who determines that on your farm? Hopefully, the manager does. And more hopeful, you are the manager and not the boss cow. So who works for who on your farm? Do the cows work for you, or do you work to feed the cows? You need to be the supervisor, the CEO. Those cows need to be the hourly employees. They need to be doing things for you, not you doing things for them. Jim showed you this slide earlier. It talks about the efficiency in getting that full mouthful. For cows, it's around 2,400 pounds. Our sheep is around 1,600 pounds. And it just happens to do with the size of the mouth. These my big Suffolk friends. The big sheep, big mouths, they're not nearly as efficient. That's my little Chevy Dorset. Determine. The other part we get is the nutrients. Also affects some of our learned behavior. And the toxins. We all probably have some toxins in our fields. I say that because we probably all have some infected Kentucky 31 tall fescue in our fields. And that infected plant has a toxin in it. And that toxin will reduce the amount of intake they'll take in. They'll still eat it, but maybe not as much as they need. That's the reason the performance goes down in the summer. Toxin levels up, they'll eat that, they don't, it's got some toxins in it, they don't feel nearly as good, they don't eat nearly as much. Those other plants have tannins in them that aren't nearly as good. It gives them indigestion, or makes them a little sick, may not kill them. And usually the plants that really kill them, they only do that once, right? Then there's flavors and off tastes that also affect how they do that. But all plants contain different levels of nutrients, palatability, and toxins in them. Every plant we have has something. Right. Excess, if you eat something really good, what's going to happen here? Hopefully 4 weeks. Yes. And what happens in that first week of new grass? Diarrhea. Is that a healthy condition for those cows to be in? No. It's really very, very nutritious. And they tend to eat more than they need, just like my granddaughter and grandkids can eat too much candy when they're at grandpa's house. Then I give them to their parents. Like all good grandparents do. But think about it. They'll eat more of that fat. So we can have just as good with really nutritious feed. You've got to be aware of that and understand that. Also, we'll have really high protein levels in this early grass. And what happens when they eat too much protein? Besides getting diarrhea, they actually lose weight because it takes energy to burn that excess protein off. How does an animal, even us, get rid of excess protein? It goes through our blood system, our cells will take it in, but then it has to go back through the liver. It exits our body as urine. So it has to go through that organ and the liver to purify the blood, to purify it takes the urine back, or the waste product, out of our blood, and passes on. All those things are high maintenance or high energy requirement organs. Same with a cow. She's eating new grass that's 35% protein. Does she need that much? She's got to process it. She'll actually lose body weight eating all she can eat. And she has to process that extra protein. We used to have a diet called Atkins diet, worked on the same principle. Eat more protein, burns body fat. Because you got to burn energy to dissipate that extra protein out of your body. Whoop. There, thank you. This is not pasture. You know what's in your pasture. When I bought my farm 30 years ago, it was mostly long 4 rows and tall fescue. Okay. Now it's 45% tall fescue, 15 Kentucky bluegrass, 10% orchard grass, 18% white clover, 10% red clover, and 2% forbs. Forbs are good. What would you call forbs? Weeds. But I like, most of the forbs I have are grazing. Dandelions, chicory, plantain. Some of them I even plant. I plant chicory. I don't want any dandelions, see, but they usually come natural. Okay? Dandelions, they're good. They're deep rooted, they bring a lot of minerals in them. And my ewes will eat a lot of dandelions here in the next 6 weeks. Yes. Did I plant this? I did not. I planted orchard grass and the red and white clovers. The bluegrass came. Now, at this point in my life, I'm adding some new things to this, adding some alfalfa to this mix. The last 7 years we've been dry in the fall. I want to plant another deeper rooted legume. I've added some other grasses into this mix as well. Looking at some new improved Kentucky bluegrasses. Some better genetics in terms of ryegrasses as well. Some cold drought tolerant perennial ryegrasses. So we're adding, because now my fertility is good, my organic matter is up, I can support some of these other things. Understand that bluegrass was the dominant grass in this part of the world before World War II. There was no tall Kentucky 31 tall fescue on these hills during World War II. Most of the beef in the United States was finished here in eastern United States on grass before World War II. On bluegrass pastures that were knee high. When you think of bluegrass, what do you think? Short little grass. Bluegrass should be knee high. But what have we done? You selected for short bluegrasses. You've overgrazed it and grazed it for you, us as farmers, just like if you were to select for a short cattle, which we did in the 50s. You get what you ask for and what you manage for. We managed for short grass pastures, and we got short grass pastures. We found Kentucky 31 that grew tall, could survive continuous grazing, and now we got Kentucky 31. So it survives the kind of management that we're doing here. Most of people are doing. Not you all here, you're the best cream of the crop, right? But your neighbors. Growth curve. Jim talked about this. This is where you want to try and be. Remember he talked about the phase 1, 2, and 3? You want to try and stay in phase 2 all the time. And if you get better and better, you want to squeeze that phase 2 down, chop it. 20% off the bottom, 20% off the top, and just stay in the steepest part of that. Thus the reason I'm leaving 1,500 to 1,600 pounds of aftermath.
Battery's time in this. I'm just doing the handheld. And
so I'm right in here. This is 1,200 pounds. This is 1,600 pounds. So I'm grazing right in here. I never let it get up to here, or try not.
I give up.
So you never will. You come to my farm and you may see it. Because this is about when it goes to boot. Then after it pollinates, you actually lose dry matter. It starts going downhill. So we want to try and stay in terms of grazing in that steep stage of phase 2. Busy chart, what I wanted to say is, are you using all the things that are available to you? Are you just grazing one type of pasture? There's lots of things we can do for our pasture that we can graze. We can utilize all that's available to us. that's just an example of all the different things that we could utilize. Most of us just have one type of pasture because it makes management easy. And if that's your goal, that's all right. But if you want to be more productive, you may have to manage more different types of things, more diversity in order to get where you want to be. Technology. Where are we with technology? I love this slide. 1930. 50 bushels, this is Ohio, because that's my home state. The state average corn yield was 50 bushels an acre. I graduated from Ohio State, the Ohio State University, undisputed national champions. In 1975, I went home that fall and helped my father harvest corn. The reason I remember this was our farm equaled the state average, 75 bushels an acre. Some of you younger guys, 75 bushels, wow, that's hardly worth going out. What has happened? Almost doubled, or more than doubled, in the next 30 years. Then last year, well, 2 years ago, 2013, I haven't got the 2014 numbers, our Ohio State average was 177 bushel corn. More than 100 bushel corn than when I graduated from Ohio State. More per acre. The world record corn yield is at 503 bushels an acre. It was grown in Georgia. Think about it. What's the world record forage production? No one ever does it, do they? I challenge our extension forage specialists to figure out what's our potential, how much can we grow? Corn growers expand horizons. Can we expand our horizons of growing forages? How much forage can we grow? What's our capability? What's our limitations? The other one part of that technology is the harvesting. My grandfather in 1930 could harvest 100 bushels of ear corn in a day, 9-hour day. Milk the cows, go out in the morning after you milk the cows, harvested 50 bushels of corn, came back in, ate lunch, unloaded that wagon, went back out, harvested another 50 bushels, came back in, milked the cows, told my dad to unload that second load of corn. That was a lot of work. My brother, same farm, last year could harvest 100 bushels of shelled corn in 9 minutes. That's technology. What kind of technology have we used in forages that mimics what we've done with corn? Great potential. We could do so much more with forages. Look at the forages on the other hand. 1930, state average yield was 2 tons per acre. Even in 2013, it hadn't gone up yet. We haven't done anything to our yields, state yields. Alfalfa, it's a little better than the other forages, but 2 tons. And we're not shocked. We're the 15th largest hay producing state in the union. And I put some counties in there, because Athens County's where OU is, so you may know where Athens is. They're not even at 2 tons an acre. Fairfield County, up closer to where I live, are slightly over 2 tons per acre. 2 tons an acre. What's our potential? 7 to 9 tons. We're not even touching the potential that we have. Oh. So much for technology. I'm glad I got a whole IT staff over there. Water is the other one to look at. Some technology made in the water system. And when I first started working for SES, we had just concrete tanks. Now we design water systems, pipelines, and portable tanks like this. That's technology adoption. We've got it back out there on the grazing field. Again, that 800-foot line. Protecting stream banks with rock crossings improves the efficiency of the grazing systems. There it is. Cows will walk much quicker through that rock crossing than they will just on their own. Typically, cows don't run through a stream. They're very leery of crossing because they can't see the bottom. So they put their hoof down until they touch bottom. And if it's a mud bottom, it may be a while before they get touched. You put a stone crossing in, it's a gravel, solid surface. When they put their hoof down, they'll walk on through a normal gait. It doesn't slow them down. They can get from one side to the other and not cause any problems. Two slides. Do you evaluate your fertility? Do you know your soil test values? Soils are very good. Jim teaches me very good. I started my career with SES as a soil scientist. You know what he called me? I grumpy old guy. I switched after about 7, 8 years of mapping because I said I talked too much to be a soil scientist. Not really. I really had an interest in grazing and forage production because I saw the potential we had in managing forages, and there wasn't anybody doing it. I saw a place that I could fit in, do some, make a change, make a difference. So we got you. Think about testing your pasture fields. Do you know that soil test level? Because it means a lot. A lot of our fields are very, very low in phosphorus and calcium. And what's leaving your farms? Calcium and phosphorus. When you load that water, when you load your trailer up with calves to sell them, the biggest nutrient leaving there is not nitrogen. It's phosphorus and potassium in the skeleton of those cows, or those calves. There's more skeleton there than there is meat. And that's what's leaving your farm. Then you got my dairy farmers. They even market their product by selling drink milk, strong bones, healthy teeth, calcium in it. But they're very reluctant to put calcium back on their farms. So we need to the best time to put nutrients on our farm is in the fall of the year. So as you're getting ready to haul manure, think about this fall. It's the best time to spread that manure on your pasture fields. Not right now. Not in the spring of the year. The fall. Is the pH all right? Last I said in Tom Haslund's presentation, talking about pH being one of the most critical limiting factors we have. Yes.
Is there so little in that? Is there really?
Our grasses need the nutrients in the fall of the year. Grasses are a very big plant group in the fact that they can regenerate their roots. And they do that in the fall of the year. As the days start getting shorter, that's one of the triggers that gets them to regenerate roots. That's how you build organic matter with grasses. Half of the roots die off and are regenerated. No other plant group does that. What happens to a tree if you prune its roots? Dies. Most other plants, if you prune the roots, they die. That's how you control a lot of weeds. You cut the roots off. Grasses, you can take half the roots off and they still survive. And actually grow new ones. Alfalfa can't grow a new taproot. Red clover can't grow new root system. Grasses can. And they do that in the fall. If you want a stronger, healthy pasture, do it in the fall of the year. We put it on now, what's that plant going to be doing? What's the next major purpose, function of the grass plant's life? Make a seed head. All you're going to do is complicate your life and grow more seed heads. And seed stalks aren't very palatable on there. So we really don't need them on there. We really don't need the extra potassium in the spring of the year. Especially if you're calving in the spring of the year. Our soils naturally give up a lot of potassium over the winter months. So our soils are the highest level of potassium they're going to be throughout the year here in the next few weeks. So the plants will take up extra potassium, not enough magnesium. Your cow eats the plants and they're short on magnesium, and if she's getting ready to calve, you have a great case for milk fever, grass tetany, all those other magnesium shortage diseases that, disease or symptoms that they can get. So I always encourage you to fertilize in the fall of the year. That includes spreading manure. Well, now, if you're going to spread it on a crop field, that's great. If I'm spreading it back on my hay or pasture field, that's probably not a good thing. If you want a thicker, denser pasture, you want to fertilize in the fall. If I want a clumpier open pasture, I fertilize in the spring because I'm going to make those plants not worry about tillering. They're just going to grow up. So remember, in pasture fields, we're looking for density, not height. Your production comes in the fact that more and more leaves closer together. So we have a lot of fertility in our hay and our forages, 15 pounds of phosphorus, 60 pounds of potassium, and potash. 80% of these are recycled in your pasture. Now, the secret is, are you getting that cow to work for you and putting those nutrients back where you want them? Or is she just putting them in a pile someplace? You've got llamas, that's what they do. Horses will do the same thing too. Some cows tend to just, if you aren't controlling the grazing, aren't managing the grazing, cows will deposit the manure in one area as well. So we want to try and get them to deposit the manure over the whole field. So,
Which way you want to go?
down
It stopped again.
Oh, I didn't want to go there.
Click the button.
Here. So 3 times I could utilize nitrogen late winter if I want to grow more grass in the spring of the year. And I only would do this if hay is in tight supply. You need to put nitrogen on 6 weeks before you want the grass. So if you want grass in the 1st of April, you need to be putting your fertilizer on back in February. What was it like? Frozen and snow covered. My part of the world. It wouldn't work. So it doesn't work very often. Now, if I put it on now, it'll be the 1st of May. And I get that. And I'm going to have plenty of grass the 1st of May anyway without doing anything. So very rarely would I do that. Late spring is another position. This is after we manage through the seed heads, remove them, or take the first cutting the hay off, and fertilize there the end of May, the 1st of June. We still have soil moisture, and we can grow more grass going into the summer months. It's kind of like a mini stockpile for the summer. Bluegrass was notorious for doing that. Your great-grandfathers on these hills in Ohio would haul their manure after they had the corn plant on their pasture fields and grew a lot of grass for July and August grazing. Bluegrass can stockpile for the summer. We call it deferred grazing. Yes, bluegrass will turn brown, but it holds its nutrients. Remember, there's no nutritional value in the soil. Green's just a color. But we can do that. Late summer is the other one. We can do stockpile. And it nearly always pays the stockpile. You've got to have real expensive nitrogen fertilizer and really cheap hay. And it doesn't pay to do stockpile. It's another reason I fertilize in the fall. I can use that manure as my nitrogen source for my stockpile. I don't have to go on fire. I can utilize the manure I have accumulated in the winter months. Benefits of legumes. Ed talked about this back in his session earlier. Improved yields, improved quality, nitrogen fixation, and summer growth. All the advantage of adding legumes to your pasture. So one of the things you can take home and still do yet in the next few days, think about it. Adding 6 pounds of red clover to my grass pastures will jump my yield up to 11,000 pounds, 5 tons. Notice if I don't do anything, what's my yield? 2 tons, 3,900 pounds. Why do we have a 2-ton yield? Because we don't do anything. In order to make a change, we've got to do something. And I would dare say most of our forage production, eastern Ohio and southern Ohio, gets 0. Okay? If we just did something, we get more from it. So there's a big benefit to adding clover to it. It's better than adding nitrogen fertilizer. Next. There we go. Same thing with production performance. Improve the gain in our cows. They come out better condition, better to get rebred. 0.12 to 3/4 of a pound. And all we did was add red and white clover to that pasture. Done it in Indiana, done it in Virginia. Doesn't matter where we do it, it works. It works to get the clover out there. Next. Same thing here where we're growing animals, more pounds, and clover is better than the fertilizer because we have that diversity of the plants. So the animal can utilize that. Next, I'll just let you guys punch that.
That'd be great.
All right. And this one, after winter feed costs, what's your next limitation in beef production? Getting them bred. Look at this right here. Adding legumes to your tall fescue will increase your breeding conception rate from 75% to 89%. Improving the level of nutrition for that cow. She'll ovulate and she'll hold that egg in there. A lot of times you can get it bred, but the egg won't stick in the uterus. And it's all tied to nutrition. And that we're diluting the tall fescue with toxins. So it's worked in Indiana and Illinois. It's worked in Virginia. Don't have that data up here. Think about it. Getting those cows bred back on time. Then the other addition is just the nitrogen we get back. This is where some of the newer genetics, some of the red clovers, pay benefits even here. A lot of the newer genetics of red clover have a higher leaf to stem ratio. That means there's more weight of leaf than there is stem in some of the older varieties of red clover. What does that mean? If you have more leaves, they'll catch more sunlight, they'll make more photosynthesis, you have more sugar to share with the rhizobia down below, so you can support, the clover plant can support a higher population of rhizobia bacteria. The higher the population, the more nitrogen you're going to make. So we don't require any nitrogen if we're growing wheat corn. Put that 60-cent value in there, that's what you get. Cross seeding makes it work. Kind of almost past that unless it gets cold again here next week or something. You want to have 20-degree nights, 40-degree days, maybe past that. Northern Ohio may still get that. Okay? We may still get another snow or two. Go ahead, guys. No-till drilling it in. That's where I'm at. My pastures are so thick I can't get a cross seeding work. There's just too much out there. So I have to come in with a drill and physically drill the seed into the soil to be successful at putting seed in this time of the year. So we'll come in there. I like a drill that has a wavy coulter. It's going to do some disturbance, and not one that's just going to slice and plant. I want to fluff and plant. That means fluff means something with a wavy coulter. It's going to fluff the seed up, get some soil seed contact. Okay, guys? That's what 54% will do. And you guys probably don't need that unless you are running stalker camps. But my sheep do really well when I have 45 to 50% clover in my pasture. They're a high demand for protein, especially lambs. My goal is for my ewes to wean off their body weight. So when you beef cows, have a cow that can wean off her body weight with a calf, in one growing season, let me know. I got ewes that'll wean off their body. Huh? That means the weight of their lambs at weaning time equal the weight of the mom. Okay? Huh? They're about, I usually wean them about 100 days. No. They can't do it in 209 days. They might not do it in a year. Yes. That's the efficiency of small ruminants. That's our big advantage. And I can sell those weaned lambs right off at a premium market. So that's the efficiency of sheep over cattle, is the fact that they can do that. But it takes good quality pasture, good management to make that work. Next, guys. This is my farm. This is what we've done. 2005, I started measuring my pastures. I grew 7 tons. I thought it was just really good. The next year was 8. I was right there where Jim said I should be. Then 2007 was a very dry year, and he was right. It takes water to make grass. I got 3 tons. 2008 bounced back up. 5.5, 9, 6.5, 10, 5.8, 4.7, 2.7 in 2012, another very dry year for us. And then I started coming back. I'd never been able to match 2000 and, what was that? 6. 5 and 6. Now some of it, I don't remember. One of the things I learned this week was a slide to Jim. As diversity rises in your pasture, you get less fall growth. You all remember that. I remember. That's what I'm seeing on my pasture. I'm not getting as much fall growth. I'm getting more summer growth, but my fall growth is really falling off. And I keep blaming the weather, and it may be very well deal with diversity. I got 12 different species now. But the legumes tend to, as the days get shorter, the legumes stop growing as fast. So they're taking up space that where before, in 5 and 6 was grass growing. But now I got more legumes, and I'm not getting those yields. I may have to think about ways of managing to get more production out of those legumes in the summer months than I do in the fall. Just some of those things I keep working on, Chris. That's why I need them. I need you and Mark Schultz to come up with the reasons I don't do that. And some of the research things I'm looking for. The social aspects of where we're at with grazing. Go ahead, guys. There's click through. Yes. Next. You know what those are? Pigs. Look at the tails. There was no curly tails on. Those are grass-fed lambs. Grass-fed lambs. There's no yellow fat on there. They're grazing. These are a lot of legumes. Took this picture. I wish I could take credit for it. They were mine. Got this in France. We went to the packing plant. Saw these string of lambs going through there. Oh my goodness, look at this. All on grass. That's what they're doing. Next one. Whoop. Grass-fed beef. Rapidly growing niche market. Multiple new groups coming together to market grass-fed beef. My resume I talked about I'm doing stalker camps. This last year we took some calves to grass finish. My first experience of doing that. Well, Mark, I have no problem selling beef stick. So there's a growing interest in this. Next one, guys. Grass-fed milk. There's several companies that are marketing now milk from pasture cows. Cows that are out on grass or on pasture. If you're organic milk, it has to be 120 days on pasture. So there's a big movement toward that. Right now, there's a shortage of organic milk. Organic Valley can't get enough milk in to meet their demands. So there's a growing interest in what we're doing as grass farmers. be organic or just raising good grass, animals on good grass. The other part is what we don't talk enough about is the science stuff that's going on. So many teachers talk about planting a tree to clean the air. You realize grass takes two times the amount of carbon out of the air as a forest? It should be plant grass. Where are we as forage specialists, Chris? And we're not marketing grass packets to the school children. Say, hey, go home and plant some grass. Don't plant a tree. Well, different kind of grass. Oh, I forget where you're at. Blacksburg, yeah. Now I know why you won that football game. I just thought that was steam coming out of the tunnels. That was really some other smoke coming out of there. Okay. We need to talk about what we can do with our grass. Cleaning the air, tying up carbon. We can build soil organic carbon back into the soil. Because trees don't do that. How does a tree build a soil organic matter? It has to die first. It doesn't have. And then just the roots. You don't build much organic carbon. Soil organic carbon goes into the tree itself, but that doesn't get tied into the soil very well. This, we need to talk about things we can do there. Roots. 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 I know that. What kind of roots do you have? What kind of roots are you managing for? A good management intensive grazing, we should look like this third slide. How deep does grassroots go? What were you taught in school? Oh, they're grasses, they want to go down a little bit. Is that middle one 12? That's about 3 foot. That's good managed rotational grazing. You do a little better, you got a root system that looks like that. And if you're really premier, you grow roots like that. That's a tall fescue plant with that long root there, 18 foot long. We can grow roots, but you got to be able to manage the plants to do that. You think that plant has any drought tolerance? Why? The roots are the most important part of what you have going on in your grazing system. Tremendous amount of energy. Soil erosion. We control a lot of soil erosion with our grazing systems. There's nothing better we can do to land than to cover it with a good, nice standard forage. Really improve soil health. It's everything our folks talk about in terms of soil health. We're already doing. Do cover crop needs and one of the things I talk about. What you guys talking about cover crops, we've been talking about in pasture systems for 20 years. Diversity, plant roots. Jim Crawford, Jim's still here or not, there you go. 20 years, good distribution of nutrients across that field. And what do they talk about when you spread fertilizer? You put it on bare ground or a growing crop. Those cows are doing exactly what we tell them to do with the 4R program. Right time, right place, right form, right rate.
Ultra high stocking density dairy that requires
It works. Now the downside, I want you to be aware of this part too. Most of us are in that, well, some of you may be in the Chesapeake Bay. I'm in the Gulf of Mexico. Pasture rangeland is the largest source of phosphorus going down the Mississippi River. It's not crop failures. Crop failures get credit for the nitrogen. And we got to take ownership of the phosphorus. And remember, most of the cows in the Ohio Valley and upper Mississippi Valley, beef cows, are wintered in the valleys. And what happens here in the next few weeks? We'll get flooded. And all that winter manure will get flushed down the river. And that phosphorus in that manure will leave. We need to think about ways we can keep that on our farm. That's your phosphorus, your fertilizer. We need to keep it on our farm. How do we do that? Move the animals more often. If you're moving them once a week, move them twice a week. If you're moving them twice a week, move them daily. If you're moving daily, move twice a day. Improve your performance. Improve your management. Use brake pads, temporary fence, poly wire, reels, water in the paddocks. Avoid using permanent shade on a daily basis. How often do they need shade? You going to ask that question? How many hours out of the day do they need that? Oh, you're that good extension guy. It's only about 4 or 5 hours. The heat of the day. In reality, if you think shade's important to your animals, put them out there before you go to lunch, take them out before you go to dinner. They only need to be shade in there in the heat of the afternoon. But too many guys will have them out in the shade paddock for a week. They don't need, what do you need shade for in the middle of the night? They go into, we got to know what good shade is. Good shade is not uptight words. If they're not laying down, you're not taking the stress away from them. I'm assuming you think they need shade because they're under stress. If they're standing, they're still under stress. They're still hot. If they're not laying down, you haven't solved any problems. You transferred the problem, but you haven't solved it. So if you think you need shade, look at what they're doing when they're in the shade that you're providing. One tree is not shade. It needs to look like a city park. There should be grass growing underneath. You want your cows to lay down. If they're not laying down, they're still under stress. What do cows do when they're stressed? And they stand face to face. And what's the temperature of a cow? It's 102 degrees, going back and forth. You think that's not stressful? I bet you don't even let her blow your face all night. And I know she wouldn't let you. Okay. So think of it. When they're laying down, they should not be touching one another. You want them to lay down, be sprawled out. You want good breeze blowing underneath the tree canopies, and you want half of the light coming through, air moving. You want that hot air to rise up. If you're in a thick, dense woods, the hot air that they're giving off, where's it going? It's stuck under the canopy. So you want that hot air to rise. So you want to be able to have good shade. If you're going to have shade, make sure it's good shade and it's providing the stress relief you need. Then the other thing I pick on you cattle guys, have you selected for stressed, heat tolerant cattle? Starting to. You've selected for black cows with heavy haircuts. You should be breeding to Brahma. Think about that. You want to worry about heat. I'm not a big proponent of heat or shade. If you think we need shade, think of permanent or portable structures. Whoops. I know. This is my last slide. And I like this slide. This was from the Yearbook of Agriculture, 1948, from John England. He was a senator from Kansas. He wrote this when he was campaigning on horseback. Grass is the forgiveness of nature, with constant benediction. Its tenacious fibers hold the earth in place and prevent its soluble components from washing into the sea. Stops erosion of nutrients leaves them. It invades the solitude of deserts, climbs the inaccessible slopes and forbidden pinnacles of mountains, modifies climates, and determines the history, character, and destinies of nations. Grass yields no fruit in the earth or the air, yet should its harvest fail for a single year, famine would depopulate the world. That's what you are. You're grass farmers. What you're growing is very, very important. I tried to show you some ideas. We're going to be exporting one of our forage. We're feeding